We've all seen the memes, the yellow family that somehow sees the future, Lisa Simpson's smartwatch, the defective voting machines, the Higgs boson equation on a blackboard. But there's one prediction that's different, one that isn't a quick sight gag. It's an entire episode that lays out a dark roadmap. An episode from the year 2000 that didn't just predict a Donald Trump presidency, it showed what comes after. It points to a moment of total collapse, a crisis inherited by the next leader. And the internet has settled on a single terrifying year for this collapse, 2025. What did the show actually say? Why are people convinced a cartoon from over 2 decades ago is sounding an alarm for next year? We're going to break down the 5 most disturbing clues hidden inside this one 30-minute story. If you value deep dives into stories that shape our reality, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work, and tell us in the comments what city you're watching from. This script is researched and factual, drawing from the original episode itself, Bart to the Future, and from mainstream reporting on its cultural impact from sources like The Hollywood Reporter. Now back to the story. Number 1, The Inheritance. The episode aired on March 19th, 2000. To truly grasp the seismic shock of this prediction, you must transport yourself back to that specific moment. The year 2000 was the apex of American triumphalism. The Cold War was a distant memory. The Y2K bug, which was supposed to crash global civilization, had turned out to be a rounding error. The internet was exploding, minting millionaires overnight in the dot-com bubble, and there was a pervasive, intoxicating sense of techno-optimism. Most importantly, the nation's finances were, for the first and only time in modern memory, incredibly healthy. The United States federal government was running a massive budget surplus, not a small one. In the fiscal year 1998, a surplus of $69 billion. In 1999, $125 billion. And in the year 2000, a staggering surplus of over $236 billion. The national political debate wasn't about what to cut. It was about how to spend this colossal windfall. Into this serene ocean of prosperity, the Simpsons dropped a depth charge. They imagined a future 30 years later defined by utter, hopeless bankruptcy. And they put a name to the cause, President Donald Trump. The scene itself is an American tragedy played for laughs. Lisa Simpson, the nation's brightest hope, a woman who has finally shattered the highest glass ceiling, enters the Oval Office not as a triumphant visionary, but as a glorified bankruptcy manager. Her first words to her assembled staff are not a clarion call for a new era, but a weary, almost bored statement of fact. Quote, "As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump. The casual delivery is what makes it so brutal. The disaster is so complete. It's already mundane. Her administration is stillborn, its potential suffocated by the debts of the past. Her team, a cabinet of her childhood friends, is paralyzed. Milhouse Van Houten, the Secretary of the Treasury, holds up a graph showing the nation's economic output. The line doesn't trend down, it falls off a cliff. We're broke, he squeaks, confirming the nightmare. The episode then meticulously shows the fallout. Lisa's policy ambitions, focused on education and social welfare, the very building blocks of a healthy society, are dead on arrival. She is informed that far from investing in children, the government has been forced to enact a punitive breakfast tax, a regressive tax that hits the poorest families the hardest, just to keep the lights on in Washington. This detail is surgically precise. It's a prediction that, in a time of fiscal crisis, the burden will fall on the most vulnerable. When the real Donald Trump left office in January 2021, the national debt had ballooned by nearly $8 trillion. The show didn't just guess a name, it foresaw the exact nature of the consequence, a crippling generational debt designed to steal the future in order to pay for the past. Number 2, the map of collapse. In that same grim Oval Office meeting, as Lisa Simpson grapples with the fiscal black hole left by her predecessor, Milhouse reveals the episode's most potent and terrifying symbol, a map of the United States. It's not a grand, holographic display from a science fiction movie. It's a simple, almost crude digital screen, a product of year 2000 animation. But what it displays is a vision of national disintegration. Across the map, an unspecified number of states are blinking a frantic, angry red. They flash on and off, like vital signs on a dying patient. The blinking signals a nation in the throes of a systemic crisis. The genius of the gag, and what makes it so prophetic, is its ambiguity. The show never explains why the states are blinking. Is it purely economic collapse, with state governments defaulting on their debts? Is it widespread social unrest? with cities burning and citizens in revolt? Or is it the ultimate American nightmare, a political fracture, with states actively threatening to secede from the Union? Because the show refuses to say, it becomes a canvas for all our modern fears. In the America of the 2020s, all three scenarios feel disturbingly plausible. Political scientists and sociologists have spent the last decade charting the country's alarming descent into what they call effective polarization. This isn't just disagreement over policy, it's a deep-seated, visceral animosity where opposing partisans view each other as foreign, immoral, and a fundamental threat to the nation. Data from institutions like the Pew Research Center shows a stark, undeniable trend. The political middle has evaporated. The percentage of Americans who see the opposing party not just as wrong, but as a danger to the nation's well-being, has skyrocketed. This is the political environment that gives birth to talk of national divorce and secessionist movements. The episode's simple, blinking map, once a throwaway joke, now functions as a perfect visual metaphor for a country that is no longer sure it wants to be a country. You can draw a direct, unbroken line from that cartoon map to the real-world images of a nation's capital being stormed, of political violence becoming normalized, of a society where citizens can no longer agree on a shared set of facts. The map is the evidence that the budget crunch isn't just about dollars and cents, it's about the very soul of the republic. Accused, tried, silenced. Number 3, the foreign debt. A nation that is broke and divided is a nation that is weak on the world stage. The episode follows this cold logic to its devastating conclusion. In the world of 2030, President Lisa Simpson, the supposed leader of the free world, is a sovereign in name only. She has no money, no power, no leverage. Her advisor, in a moment of sheer panic, delivers the line that in the year 2000, Ostauistak was the most hysterically funny and utterly impossible joke in the entire script. We are borrowing from every country in the world. He gestures to a globe, indicating that the United States of America is reduced to a global beggar, pleading for financial aid from friends and foes alike. To understand how radical this joke was, you must understand the concept of the unipolar moment. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, the United States was the planet's sole undisputed superpower. Its military, economic, and cultural dominance was absolute. It dictated terms. It did not ask for help. In the year 2000, as the episode aired, Washington was debating granting permanent normal trade relations to China. The overwhelming consensus among the political and economic elite was that embracing China through trade would make it a responsible stakeholder in the American-led global order. It would become more like us. The writers at The Simpsons imagined the exact, terrifying opposite. A future where an economically powerful China would become America's creditor, its banker, and its master. Fast forward 2 decades. The unipolar moment is over. The United States has spent trillions on foreign wars and weathered multiple economic crises. By 2024, foreign nations held over $7.5 trillion of American debt. The 2 largest foreign creditors, Japan and China, holding the keys to America's financial stability. The episode's most outlandish joke had become a geopolitical reality. This dependency isn't theoretical, it has real-world consequences, creating vulnerabilities and limiting America's freedom of action. The cartoon's scenario of the President of the United States having to make desperate phone calls to foreign leaders, not to command, but to plead, is no longer science fiction. It is the core anxiety of modern American foreign policy. If you want us to keep digging into these cultural mysteries, hit that subscribe button. We rate every comment, so let us know where you're from. Now, back to the story. Number 4, the date. Here's where the story transcends television analysis and becomes a modern myth. A piece of digital folklore forged in the fires of the internet. The episode Bart to the Future never, not for a single frame, mentions the year 2025. That date does not appear in the script. It was not a prophecy made by the writers. It was a prophecy made by the audience. It was reverse engineered. The calculation, now a core tenet of the mythos, is a simple but powerful piece of interpretive algebra. The episode, which aired in 2000, is explicitly set 30 years in the future, in 2030. In that timeline, Lisa confirms she took office immediately after President Trump. This is the crucial link. Donald Trump's real-world presidency concluded in January of 2021. His successor, Joe Biden, was elected to a standard 4-year term. That term's expiration date is January 2025. If one maps the show's fictional succession onto our real-world timeline, the next president would take the oath of office in January of 2025. That person, the theory posits, is the Lisa Simpson figure. walking into the Oval Office to discover the fiscal and social ruin left behind. This fan theory didn't just appear. It grew organically, spreading from obscure message boards to Reddit threads to YouTube compilations to viral TikToks. The specificity of the date, 2025, gave it a weight and an urgency that a vague "in the future" never could. It created a deadline, a countdown clock. This phenomenon reveals how we process anxiety in the digital age. In a world of chaos and uncertainty, a conspiracy theory can be strangely comforting. It suggests that there is a hidden order, that someone, somewhere, in this case, the writers of a cartoon, saw it all coming. It creates a pattern out of randomness. This is amplified by confirmation bias. For an audience already primed to believe that the system is broken and that disaster is imminent, the Simpsons episode becomes the ultimate proof, the sacred text. The viral spread is then supercharged by social media algorithms, which are designed to feed users a constant stream of content that confirms their existing beliefs, creating powerful echo chambers where the 2025 theory is repeated until it solidifies into an unquestionable fact. The date wasn't a message from the past, it was a mirror reflecting our own present-day fears back at us. Number 5. The writer's confession. So, if it wasn't a time traveler in the writer's room, what was it? It was the work of a professional satirist doing his job. It was a diagnosis. In 2016, as the world was reeling from the reality of a Trump presidency that his show had joked about 16 years earlier, the episode's writer, Dan Graney, finally went on the record. He explained the entire thought process. He stated, with no ambiguity, that the gag was conceived as AA, quote, "all warning to America." It was not a fluke. It was not a random dart thrown at a board. It was a carefully aimed critique. Graney explained that the idea of a President Trump was pitched because it seemed like the logical last stop before hitting bottom. It was, in his now famous words, consistent with the vision of America going insane. This is the Rosetta Stone for the entire prophecy. The writers weren't seers or mystics. They were astute cultural critics. They looked at the landscape of American society at the turn of the millennium, the explosion of reality television, the cult of celebrity, the erosion of the wall between politics and entertainment, and they identified a cultural sickness. They saw a society that was beginning to value performance over substance, brand over belief. They simply took that diagnosis and followed its trajectory to the most extreme, yet logical, endpoint. For them, hitting bottom was not just an economic collapse. It was a spiritual and intellectual one. It was a society that would willingly choose a reality TV star to be its leader. The episode shows this cultural decay through the pathetic future of its other protagonist, Bart Simpson. While his sister is trying to save the world, Bart is a 40-year-old burnout, a failed musician living in the White House and trying to launch a new, terrible band. He is the embodiment of the nation's arrested development. The real warning of the episode, then, is not about one man. It's about the culture that elevates such men. It's about a nation that, as Graney diagnosed, was going insane. They didn't need to see the future. They were just the first to write down what they already saw. The story, however, does not end there. In July of 2015, a mere month after Donald Trump descended the escalator at Trump Tower to announce his improbable campaign for president, The Simpsons reacted in what felt like real time. They produced and released a short online clip called Trump-tastic Voyage. The premise is simple. Homer is paid $50 to be a planted supporter at Trump's campaign launch, where he is mesmerized by the candidate's hair and is then literally sucked into it. What follows is a surreal, psychedelic journey through a dreamscape of Trump's life and career, a floating museum of his own ego. It's littered with relics, a Miss Universe sash, an abandoned casino, a copy of The Art of the Deal. As Homer tumbles through this bizarre world, we see a cascade of discarded campaign buttons. One, clearly visible, reads Trump 2024. But there is another, half obscured by shadow. A detail so specific and so pointed, it makes the hair on your arm stand up. A small, circular button. It reads, Ivanka 2028. This is the final, chilling reveal. This is the moment you realize the writers didn't just make one lucky guess 16 years ago. They are actively diagnosing our reality as it unfolds. The Ivanka 2028 button is proof that their satirical lens is now operating in perfect sync with our political reality. The gap between the joke and the headline has closed to zero. The prophecy isn't about a single event in 2025. It's about the permanent installation of a new kind of politics, one based on dynasty, celebrity, and brand identity. It's the ultimate fulfillment of the e-vision of America going insane, a condition that no longer has a punchline. The show didn't predict a single disaster. It predicted the show we can't turn off.